What is up? Squad goals, fam, Gucci gang, drip, whatever. How are you guys doing? I just need to start over. It's like a blooper to begin with. How are you guys doing? Hope you're doing well. You can't answer that because this is a one-way communication. That's how it works. It's like radio, but without phone calls. Hope you guys are doing well. Clearly, I'm keeping myself entertained. We are going to go ahead and start with day 2 of our Dust Bowl unit. So, first thing I want to do is go ahead and introduce what we're going to be doing for our little assignment or our discussion question today. And it says, making a hypothesis. Based on the first 2 documents, we're going to go over those soon. What were the main causes of the Dust Bowl based on those documents and yesterday? I can never tell if this is mirrored. Am I pointing backwards or I don't know. Based on yesterday's video and yesterday's kind of recap or introduction onto, remember, the drought, the extended high temperatures, the poor farming techniques, the wind erosion and the wind erosion and poor farming and the high winds. Between that and what we're going to read today, what were the main causes of the Dust Bowl? Please write your answers in complete sentences. Not everyone is doing that. And if you need to look back at these documents, you can find them here and here. So, again, just to give you a quick recap, the Dust Bowl happened during the from 1930 to 36, making that decade known as the Dirty 30s, the Roaring 20s, the Dirty 30s. And the causes were extended drought, unusually high temps, poor agricultural practices, remember our fallow fields, wind erosion, and just overall natural disasters. Primarily in the Midwestern section, central Midwestern, all the way up the Midwest, Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas. And the effects were a lot of animals died, crops failed, towns basically that were populated had to pack up and leave. And so it's a rough time. That's your brief 90-second or a minute kind of review. You can go back to yesterday's video if you need a little bit more information on that. But today we're going to go ahead and look at these 2 letters. And our primary focus is making a hypothesis. So here is our Henderson letter. We're going to do this one together. And I want you to be thinking, what is a hypothesis? Well, hypothesis is an educated guess. Okay, so based on the information we know from yesterday and analyzing this primary source here and the one you're going to do by yourselves after my video, you should have a pretty good guess. Doesn't have to be 100% correct, but a pretty good guess of, guess what? What were the main causes of the Dust Bowl? Remember, that's your prompt. That's what your hypothesis is about. So let's dig in. When I do this, I like to make notes off to the side. I like to underline. I like to circle. You guys can go ahead and do this physically on a piece of paper. If you want to create a document and copy and paste this there and just make notes, you can. I don't require that I see your notes, but it's always a good idea to make them. And here's the deal. If your hypothesis is like way off base, then your notes probably, or your understanding of the primary source probably aren't where they need to be. So then you might want to be taking those notes. I always take notes. It helps me decompress. It helps me kind of dissect primary sources. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to read it first, and then we're going to go through some important details. The Henderson Letter. Caroline Henderson's letter to Henry A. Wallace, sent on July 26, 1935. Yet common sense suggests that the regions which are no longer entirely self-supporting cannot rely indefinitely upon government aid. So the problem remains, and the one satisfactory solution is beyond all human control. Some of our neighbors with small children, fearing the effects upon their health, have left temporarily until it rains. Others have left permanently, thinking doubtless that nothing could be worse. Thus far, we and most of our friends seem held, for better or worse, by memory and hope. I can look back and see our covered wagon drawn up by the door of the cabin in the early light of May morning long ago. I can feel again the sweet, fresh breath of the untrodden prairie, and recall for a moment the proud confidence of our youth. But when I try to see the wagon or the Model T truck, headed in the opposite direction, away from our home and all of our cherished hopes, I cannot see it at all. Perhaps it is only because the dust is too dense and blinding. So, we're going to need to dissect this and get as much information as we possibly can. So, this is the one we're going to do together. Tag along, and this Svobida account is one that you're going to do on your own. All right, so first, who's talking? Who's penning this? Who's writing this? And it says up here, the source is Caroline Henderson's letter. So Caroline Henderson is the author. And who is she talking to? Henry A. Wallace. When was this written? Well, look for the source, July 26, 1935. So based on what we know, 1930 to 36, this is towards the end of the Dust Bowl. But think to yourself, this writer has been living through the Dust Bowl for 5 years. It's worn on her. It's kind of part of her understanding of her new life, these circumstances and these conditions that are impacting herself, her family, her community, and that's kind of a big deal for someone to weather those conditions, no pun intended, for 5 years is inspiring. So what is she talking about? I think the first thing that we see is regions which are no longer entirely self-supporting, which means regions that no longer can support themselves through enough crop growth and sustainable food sources, they cannot rely indefinitely upon government aid, which means the government's not going to help them as much as maybe they need it. So they're going to have to look for other sources of revenue, other sources of sustainability for survival. And what's unfortunate is this is beyond, to an extent, human control, at least the rain section here. Whoops. So we know that the human control factor would be the poor farming techniques that we spoke about earlier, but there are things that are not out in their control. For instance, how hot it was, how it would not rain. The poor farming techniques just exacerbated the issue and made things a lot worse. Kind of like pouring gasoline on a fire would exacerbate an issue or kind of intensify in a negative way. So she says, others have left permanently, okay, and some have left temporarily. Those who have left temporarily had said these quotation marks mean that this is their words until it rains. So we're leaving until it rains. Even though a lot of people have left, they are staying. This is interesting. But when I see the wagon or the Model T truck headed in the opposite direction away from our home and all our cherished hopes, I cannot see it at all. What is she doing here? Why is she saying this? I think it's because she's thinking back on a brighter future or better times. Not brighter future, a brighter past. I think that she's remembering the sense of excitement when they were unpacking their car, their Model T, and joining their neighbors in a new venture. Maybe they were moving west for opportunity to start their own farm and to own their own land. Maybe they were excited for all that the future could hold in this new exciting land. And unfortunately, because of both the economic impacts from the Great Depression and the environmental impacts from the Dust Bowl, a lot of people were kind of dealt a double blow. It's like getting kind of a punch to the gut and jaw at the same time. I do not condone violence, but I want you guys to practice underlining things, practice identifying words that you don't understand. For instance, this Svobida account, this is the one that you're going to do. When I first started reading this, I immediately found this, hard pan. What in the world is a hard pan? Guys, Google's nuts. More times than not, you can put something not even close to what you're looking for and it's going to get it. For instance, I expected to see some sort of like dense skillet when I searched this or something, and no. Literally, I search hard pan and it tells me exactly what it is here. So I am looking forward to you guys taking advantage of this opportunity to do Document B on your own. Remember, I don't need to see your write-ups. I don't need to see your notes. What I do need to see is I need to see your hypotheses. I need to see all of your individual work answering this question. What were the main causes of the Dust Bowl? Enjoy making your hypothesis. I enjoy reading them. And we will see you next time. Also, that's a guitar there, David. I'm practicing. Trying, man. Trying to get back into it. Maybe by the end of our school year, I can play a little tune. Cringeworthy. Sorry, Lexi. All right, or Alex. See ya! See you next time, guys.